Okay, I'm live. Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm a bit late today. If you're watching, right, sorry, never know how to start these things. So start off as ever. Hi, it's your first time watching. I'm Tom. This is N.E.S.T Outreach from the 25th of June 2020. Today we are going to be looking at some food vocabulary as promised last week. As ever, what I'm going to do, I'll give it sort of 5 minutes. So if you're watching this on the video after the fact, then feel free to skip forward 5 minutes. I'm just going to wait for a few more people to tag along. But if you want to stick around, hello if you've just joined us. Yeah, so today, like I say, we're going to be doing some food vocabulary and thinking about sort of how to describe food, thinking about some healthy eating, and doing a little bit of sort of grammar stuff as well. But like I say, if you're watching the video after the fact, rather than watching it live, feel free to skip forward sort of, about 4 minutes now instead. But if you're watching us live, watching me live, please say hello in the chat. Always great to hear from people when they're watching live. Yeah, like I say, today we're going to be talking about like food vocabulary, doing some describing food, got all sorts of fun stuff coming up. So if you want to be thinking, maybe if you're watching us live, or waiting for a couple more people to tag along, maybe about food from your home country, if you've got any favourite food in this country, what you think about it, what you might think of English food, what your favourite food is, anything. If you want to comment in the chat, put what your favourite food is, because I'd be fascinated to hear. Should have thought what mine is before coming on. I'm not sure what I might say my favourite food would be. I suppose it depends on the situation. I do like Italian food, of course. Fairly boring there. Pizza, pasta, absolutely yummy. I'm not sure at all. I feel like I'm having deja vu. I'm pretty sure I've not done this lesson before. No, I've been doing it for a few months. I feel like I've covered a lot of ground. No, I'm confident that I haven't. Yeah, like I say, just getting a weird sense of deja vu. Hope you all had a nice day, nice week, whatever. Hope you're enjoying the lovely weather that we seem to be having today. Seems to be very nice, doesn't it? Actually, in fact, a bit too hot for you, ask me, because my skin tone I get very sunburnt very easily. So so not necessarily ideal in that respect. It's very hot, but anyway, it's nice to, while I'm doing this, be looking out the window, seeing the sunshine, listening to what's going on outside, and yeah, can't complain really too much about the hot weather. It's very pleasant indeed. But yeah, remember to keep hydrated, keep cool, keep in the shade. I'm sure you know all this stuff already, but yes, I'll just give it another minute or so. Yeah, like I say, if you want to have a think about maybe favourite types of food, if you're still watching the video or if you're watching live, favourite types of food. If you're not watching live, then feel free to put in the comments what your favourite type of food might be, or if you're enjoying the lesson, if you've got any suggestions. Yeah, I don't know, just anything. Just say hello if you're watching. Always great to hear what people have to say, what people are thinking, people's thoughts. If they're enjoying the lesson, time we're at about 4 minutes. I'll give it another 30 seconds, because I don't want people who tell to skip forward 5 minutes to miss out on anything. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it, for people? So yeah, just be thinking about favourite foods. I feel like I didn't give a proper answer about what my favourite food is. Greek food's very tasty as well. I like halloumi. I like feta cheese. Anything. I'm very easy to please food-wise. But yeah, if you're watching live or in the video, do put in the chat what your favourite type of food is, and we can maybe I don't know, any suggestions. I'm always open to try new things, and might get people to try something new, whatever. Not sure. But yeah, like I say, going to be doing some food vocabulary. I'll get started sort of around about now, shall I? Now, where are we? Get the PowerPoint up. So today, where are we? Like I say, we're going to be talking about some food vocabulary. We're going to start off just with a very simple sort of task of identifying which sort of category each of these different foods might fall into. For goodness sake, can't get the right amount of zoom. That'll have to do. Yeah, if you're watching live, do put in the comments if it's too small. Just looking on the thing, it should be all right. So we're going to go through each of these different types of food and help you think. Bless me, I do apologise. That really took me by surprise there. Let's grab a tissue before we get started. I do apologise, very much took me by surprise there. There we are. What can you do? Hay fever season as well. It seems to be lots of pollen in the air recently. So, like I say before, rudely interrupted by hay fever, that today we're going to be looking at sorry, I've lost my train of thought now. First thing we're going to be doing is going through all of these different foods and thinking whether they fall into the category of meat, fruits and vegetables, fish and seafood, or dairy products. Now, this is important to know and think about, just sort of generally, I suppose, but also, I mean, it gives us a good chance to go through some various different foods and think about sort of balanced diet and healthy eating, because it's really important to try and get different types of food in your diet in different quantities, but we'll go into that later. So, first thing, do we think it's meat, fruits and vegetables, fish and seafood, or dairy products? So the first one is, of course, an apple. I think that's pretty easy one. It's like maybe the first thing you think of when you think of the category. It is, of course, a fruit. I'm just going to skim through these fairly quickly, so feel free to guess them or whatever, but I'm not going to take too much time on this because I've got a bit of a fun sort of quiz at the end that hopefully we'll have time for. So I'm going to try and fire through these fairly quickly. So an apple is, of course, fruit. That is a roast chicken on a bed of carrots. Lovely. That is in the category of meat. We've got some lettuce there. Of course, there's lots of different types of lettuce. I'd say that's a gem lettuce. There's, of course, iceberg lettuce, all sorts of different types. Tend to look fairly similar to that, maybe a different shape. But that is, of course, a vegetable. There we've got some pork, the meat of a pig. You can tell that it's pork in this particular instance because of the pork crackling, it's called. It's like the crispy skin that you can get. Very tasty. So that's pork and is a meat because it comes from an animal. Now that is some roast beef. And again, do we think it probably fall into the same category as the pork? I should say so. I think that would probably fall into the category of meat. Lovely. Now, slightly more tricky one here, I suppose. It is a meat, but when it's from not a fish and not something that's necessarily on land, call it specifically seafood. Okay, so a crab falls into the category of seafood. A shellfish, I suppose, generally seafood. Anyway, so yeah, that's a seafood. We've got there, obviously, milk comes from a cow. What do we think that falls into? That is actually a dairy product. So when you're making a nice cup of tea, you've got some milk in there, a dairy product. And basically a dairy product is actually something that derives from milk, something that's made with milk. So we'll go have a few more examples later on, but if it's made with milk, it's a dairy product. Now another instance of a shellfish here, I suppose. Computer fans, that's making an awful lot of noise. Just hopefully it sorts itself out. Here we have another instance of some seafood. These are prawns. In the United States, they might be referred to as shrimp, but could be used here making a nice prawn cocktail or something. Something a lot of people have on Christmas morning. These are, again, similarly to crab, these would go into the category of seafood. Okay, so again, it's that type of shellfish, shellfishy type food is referred to as seafood. Now here we have another product, something that is made from milk. Now this is butter, which is made when you churn milk a lot, so you mix up the milk, and so of course if it's made from milk, then it is a dairy product. Okay, now this one, another thing that you might put in a salad with your lettuce. This is absolutely delicious. We've got some growing in the greenhouse at the moment. These are cucumbers, and these are fall into the category of vegetables. Now olives, lovely. Not sure whether these would necessarily be a fruit or a vegetable. I presume a vegetable. Anyway, they go in the category of fruit / vegetables, because they like grow on trees, similar to kind of grapes, I guess. So olives, yeah, in the category of fruits or vegetables. Now here we have a different type of meat, not a meat from necessarily from a land animal or a shellfish. Now this is salmon, which is a type of fish, and that's what it's called. It's called fish. So it's not, yeah, fish. Here we have a cabbage, which falls into the fruit and vegetables category. Often you can tell by from green. Here we have some garlic, again, fruit and vegetable, kind of a root, I suppose. But yeah, vegetable. Onion. My computer's really making a lot of noise. I think it's because it's quite hot today. It's really quite warm. Anyway, carry on. Regardless of it burst in flames, and I don't spot it, then do put in the chat or whatever. Sure, it won't come to that. Here we have some onions, all different types of onions, lovely, and again fall into the fruit / vegetables category. Tomatoes. Now, many people might think these are a vegetable, but they are in fact a fruit, even though they kind of savoury, I suppose. I think it's to do with the seeds being on the inside, but tomatoes are fruit. Carrots, there we are, another sort of root. Vegetable, yeah, I'd say vegetable. Now here we've got a ham. Again, like pork, it's made from pigs, so it's taken from an animal, and therefore it is a meat product. Here we have oranges, obviously a fruit. Lovely. Now that is some tuna, and again, it's not from a land animal, it's not from a shellfish, it is taken from just a fish, and therefore we call it fish. It falls into the category of fish. Cheese, there we are. Again, if anyone knows, that cheese is again like butter made from milk, and therefore again it's a dairy product. Lovely. Now there we've got some lamb, again taken from an animal, a lamb, and therefore it is a meat. And there we've got a peach, which is a tree, and therefore, well, not therefore, but it falls in the category of fruit / vegetables, and it is a fruit. Now there again, we've got some yogurt, something else that's made from milk, and therefore what category does it fall into? It is, of course, a dairy product. And that's, I'll just go back to the start so we can have a look over the grid. So what have we got? So we've got apple. In the meat category, what have we got? We've got chicken, but more specifically that would be described as poultry, but meat is good enough in that case. Pork, beef, ham, lamb, all go into the meat category. Fruits and vegetables, we've got apple, lettuce, cucumber, olive, cabbage, garlic, onion, tomato, orange, peach, all fall into that fruit and vegetables category. And as we'll see just in a moment, if you didn't catch the little healthy eating pyramid at the end of this section, then that it's important that you eat a lot of fruit and vegetables. They're really very good for you. You should eat a lot of them. Fish and seafood. We've got the prawns / shrimp seafood, salmon just fish, tuna another fish, crab as well seafood, and then down to the dairy products, which if you remember is things that are made from milk. And there we've got our obviously milk itself, butter, cheese, yogurt, lovely, all sorts of dairy products. Now, bear that in mind. Going forward now, just thought I'd do a little brief section on healthy eating. I'm sure you're all very well aware of this already, but the different categories of food, you ought to eat different amounts of them to keep a healthy, balanced diet. Now, of course, you can eat, it's important that you have bits of everything, that you don't just limit yourself to one food group. To make sure your body gets all the nutrients and vitamins and whatever that it needs. Okay, and to do that, then you eat different amounts of different types of food. Now, if you can see from the pyramid there, the things that are at the bottom of the pyramid are the things that you should eat the most of, and that is, of course, fruits, vegetables, peas, herbs, spices, whatever, water, brilliant, all things that you should eat and drink a lot of, as much as possible. Really good for you, gets all the stuff in your body that you need. But the one thing to be careful of is not to get too much sugar. I hope you can't hear my laptop. It's not interfering the sound, is it? Yeah, like I say, do let me know in the chat if you can hear it, whirring in the background, because I might have to maybe move it somewhere, more of a shady spot or something. Anyway, so yeah, that's what you should eat most of: fruits, vegetables, and vegetables and legumes are what's referred to there. So like green beans, all that good stuff. And then the next section above that, which you should eat still, a good amount of, good to maintain a good balanced diet, is grains. Now, we didn't cover that in the last category, but that's stuff like, breads, cereals, rice, pasta, carbohydrates basically, which are really important to give you long-lasting energy throughout the day, to keep you energized and ready to go. So that's, like I say, stuff like bread, rice, pasta, oats, cereals, whatever. So, like if you're making a sandwich, put your big layer of lettuce, tomatoes, loveliness in there. You can have some, obviously, bread to hold it all together. And then in the next section above that, we've got the, dairy and the meat, sort of meat section. So we've got the milk, yogurt, cheese, and alternatives. And we've got, the lean meat, poultry, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, and again, legumes. I don't know why that's in two sections. So that's, all your stuff, like if you're making the sandwich, then you have some cheese in, or whatever, some ham, chicken, eggs, whatever. Lovely egg sandwich, yummy. That's something you should eat. Again, a bit less of that than the other two. So if you're constructing the sandwich, then it should be the most salad, lettuce, tomatoes. You'd have the bread to hold it all together, and they should have slightly less cheese or chicken or ham or whatever. And then the thing you should have the least of is healthy fats, which, contrary to maybe popular belief, fats are really important to keep everything, keep your body healthy. But healthy fats, so you could concentrate on olive oil or whatever. So that would probably be the butter in the sandwich. So all of these things are important to eat in the right proportions, so your body gets everything it needs. That's really important, that you get the whole range of fruit, vegetables, and whatever. But if whenever possible, it's always best to eat lots of fruit and vegetables to fill yourself up. Okie doke. Now on to the next thing. Now, thought what we could do is maybe using some of the foods that we've gone over in the previous section, or any that we already know from life experience. We could go into this thing about describing different foods. Okay, now that's really important. Really great skill. It goes back to sort of last week as well. We were thinking about describing pictures. Now it's really great to have all these different adjectives. So, like when we were describing pictures, we could think about what adjectives we would use there. We've got a whole different set of adjectives to use when we are describing different types of foods. Now, what this little challenge hopes to achieve is you think of the flavour, the adjective, and then you think of maybe a food that you associate with that. So, for example, sour. I definitely have done this before, haven't I? If I haven't, I'm sorry. Should have maybe checked. Losing the plot slightly. Anyway, I think this should cover some slightly different ground anyway. So hopefully it's not the end of the world. I thought I hadn't. Anyway, either way, I suppose it doesn't matter now. I'll make sure to come up with something fresh next week. Anyway, so sour. Maybe I'm just getting deja vu. Anyway, going on a tangent now, for which I apologise. It's too hot to think. I think that's the problem. I can't concentrate in this heat. So sour. Anyway, losing my train of thought. I'll get back to the point. So sour is a type of flavour that makes you go like that. Maybe where you get really sour sweets. Or sort of a lemon is probably a type of food that you would describe as being sour. Okay, a sweet is kind of, I suppose, the opposite of that. It's a kind of sugary flavour that you get, from sweet things. It's what a lot of puddings you would describe as sweet. So I suppose chocolate, apples, whatever. A lot. Basically, puddings you would describe as sweet. Now, salty. This is if you're having some McDonald's chips or whatever, or some crisps, then they would probably be the food that you describe as salty, and that's just things with a lot of salt on. It's a very specific flavour. But if you can imagine, if you've gone to McDonald's or whatever and you've got your chips, then they'll put a lot of salt on them. You say, "Oh, those chips are very salty today." Bitter. Now, I've definitely done this before. That's the type of flavour you get from like a coffee or something. It's quite a difficult flavour to describe. If something's too bitter, then it's quite an unpleasant flavour. But a little bit of bitterness is a very nice flavour. Like I say, in coffee or whatever, mixed with sweets or whatever. Bland. Now that's something that's not got a lot of flavour necessarily, but could maybe be used as something to carry other more strong flavours. So you can maybe say something just like some plain bread on its own would be bland. It's not got that much flavour on its own. Obviously, if it's lovely bread, then obviously it does. But you can maybe say that the bread is bland, but when combined with cheese and lovely other flavours, then it's not bland. But the bread by itself is bland. Strong. So that's something it's just something that's quite powerful. So if it's a powerful flavour that you really notice, then you would say it's strong. So particularly the example for that would probably be, again, coffee. If it's a really strong coffee, then it's got a really intense coffee flavour. Whereas if it's conversely, can't think of, on the opposite of that would be weak. So it's something with a less intense flavour, but like I say, something's got really powerful flavour and it goes, wow, that's a lot of flavour. You would say it's strong. So like a really strong coffee, or I think of another example, but there we are. Hot. Now this is, I suppose this is tricky. I suppose because it's in the taste section of the grid, I would say that hot and spicy are basically the same flavour really. So I'll combine those two together and say that you could So that would maybe a really hot curry, or some Mexican food with lots of chili peppers in it or something, a hot and spicy. Okay, so that's that flavour that sort of makes you sweat, like a spicy curry would probably be the best example for both hot and spicy. And on to textures. Okay, so soft. What type of foods do we think might be described as soft? Which ones can I maybe think of? Foods that are soft. So we've got ice cream is soft and creamy, and any of that type of soft. The opposite of hard, obviously. So hard, you would say maybe chocolate's quite hard again. You could say that biscuits are hard, or chewy. Now, what's chewy? Now, first thing that comes into my mind with chewy is maybe some sweets, like Haribos, or Mawams, or Percy Pigs, or whatever. You would probably describe those as chewy, and it's ones that sort of stick your teeth together, and you've got to, really get them together. Maybe if you get the sweet and you stretch them out, you can stretch them. Crunchy. Well, I suppose the best example of that would be a crunchy chocolate bar. Now that's a chocolate bar, if you don't know it, that's got honeycomb in the middle, which is sort of a caramelly flavour that you can sort of snap and it crunches in your mouth. And when you're chewing it, it might make a really loud noise. And again, you might get breadsticks or like a cream cracker or something, crisps. You could all describe those as crunchy. And it's the type of food that when you're chewing it makes a really loud crunching noise, and that is, I presume, where the sound comes from. Crispy. First thing that pops into my mind when I think of crispy is probably some crispy bacon, and that's something where you cook the bacon and all the edges are really crisp. That's crispy bacon. That's what crispy refers to. Smooth, maybe like butter or cream or something. Creamy, obviously cream, ice cream. It's that really dairy, milky flavour that sort of maybe sticks to your roof of your mouth a little bit. And flaky. Now another chocolate bar that you can get in this country called a flake, and it's like really thin layers of chocolate that sort of break away in your mouth and melt away, and are really lovely. Sort of you can often describe pastry as flaky as well. So if you've got a puff pastry on pie or a sausage roll, or in some kind of pastry that you might, if you remember the supermarket lesson, get from a patisserie or bakery, then you would describe those as being flaky. Now on to the next one. Now, another little challenge for Rudolph. I'll give you a second to work each one out. Now I'll read them out to you, and I'll give you a second to ponder them. I'll do maybe the first example with you, and then on each of the following ones give you more of a chance to have a think about them independently. So, clues. This food is soft and it tastes sweet. It's made from cream, sugar, and fruit or chocolate. It's eaten very cold, usually in summer. It's the type of food that you might have on a day like today. Another clue that I might give is that often a van will go around and play music, and you might be able to go up to the van and buy this particular food from them. This is, of course, ice cream. Similarly, you could also get an ice lolly, which is sort of just a frozen fruit juice. But ice cream is that lovely, creamy, sweet food that you're often in a cone or whatever. Now, this food is crunchy, and it can be salty or sweet. It is often eaten at the cinema. Now, think about the last time you went to the cinema. What type of food did you maybe get to take in with you? Probably won't get crisps because it's maybe a bit too crunchy for in the cinema. You might have got some sweets, but I don't think that's what it's describing. It can be salty or sweet. Give you a second to think about it, but I think it might be popcorn. Lovely, sort of fry up these corn kernels, pops up and it gives you all the flavour. Now my secret, whenever I go to the cinema, which is admittedly quite rarely, I would always get popcorn that is salty and sweet, so I get the two different flavours mixed together, and it sounds weird, but it's very lovely. So that's my top tip to you. Next time you're going to the cinema, get popcorn that is ask for salty and sweet popcorn and get them mixed together. It's very tasty. Now, what have we got next? This food is hard on the outside, but usually soft in the middle. It is very versatile and is used to make lots of sweet and savoury dishes. In the UK, people also eat it on its own for breakfast or in a sandwich. Now, what might that be? It's hard on the outside, but soft in the middle. Maybe something with some kind of a shell. It's very versatile and is used to make lots of sweet and savoury dishes. Might be something that's used in maybe baking, or maybe something that could be eaten on its own as well. In the UK, people also eat it on its own for breakfast or in a sandwich. Now, I think I know what this one might be. I'll give you a second to think about it. I would say this is probably an egg. Now, I think versatile is the perfect word to describe an egg. It is, of course, something that can be used eaten on its own. There's all sorts of different types of eggs that you can get. You can make a fried egg, which is where you just cook it in a pan, in some oil, fry it. You can make boiled egg, where you just drop the whole egg in the shell in some water and let it cook. You can have poached egg, which is where you drop it into water, taken out of its shell. You could have any number of things. And you can also, of course, use it in baking, cooking, whatever. It's used in so many things. And of course, they are laid by chickens. Now, the final one, if you've not tried an egg sandwich, I would, again, thoroughly recommend that. The food is usually hard and crunchy, and it's red or green in colour. People often use it to make desserts, for example, pies. Hard and crunchy, and it's red or green in colour. Now, things that are red and green, maybe something that's a fruit. Hard and crunchy, people often use it to make dessert. So fruit, again, yeah, quite sweet. What type of pies might we get? Maybe white, hard and crunchy. I'll give you a second to think about it. Now, I would say for that one is, of course, apples. Now, apples are themselves... Oh, no, sorry, I've gone further, not as far. Apples are an example of a countable verb, and we'll go into that just after this little section. Now, as when last week we were describing pictures, I gave you some key phrases that you could use if you were doing it for yourself. Now, in this one, here's a little dialogue between two people with examples of sentences that you might say that might be said in this conversation. So I'll run through the sentences there. A typical dish in my country is chicken madras, made with chicken and curry sauce. It's served with rice. It's very spicy, but it's delicious. No, it's quite difficult. I eat it once a week. And all the sentences above are questions that you might ask to get those answers. So, a typical dish in my country is chicken madras. Well, what do we think might get the answer? It's made of chicken and curry sauce out of these questions. How often do you eat it? What's it like? What does it come with? Is it easy to make, or what's it made of? I think I would be inclined to suggest it's slightly bigger. I think I would maybe suggest that you might get the answer. It's made of chicken and curry sauce. You would ask the question, what's it made of? Okay. It's served with rice. What question do you think might go with that? What does it come with? Served with rice. Okey-doke. It's very spicy, but it's delicious. What do you think might get the answer for that one? Not how often do you eat it? So I think it's describing the flavour. So you might ask the question, what's it like? And then, no, it's quite difficult. So which question might be asking that one? Which ones have we got left? So how often do you eat it, or is it easy to make? Now, of course, difficult is the opposite of easy. So they might be asking the question, is it easy to make? And then obviously they will get the response, no, it's quite difficult. And then finally, how often do you eat it? I eat it once a week. So I'll just run through those sentences again just to get the idea. I'll be quite quick because, like I said, I'm quite keen to get to this little quiz at the end. So a typical dish in my country is chicken madras. What's it made of? It's made of chicken and curry sauce. What's it come with? It's served with rice. What's it like? It's very spicy, but it's delicious. Is it easy to make? No, it's quite difficult. How often do you eat it? I eat it once a week. Now, on to the next thing. So if you remember just then, when I got the order of my slides confused, I mentioned briefly this idea of countable and uncountable nouns. Now, verbs even. Nouns. Sorry, I'm completely losing the plot today. It's just far too hot to be able to think at all. Anyway, so maybe if you're watching this on a cooler day, then you'll forgive my incoherence, which means that I'm not making any sense. Just finish my drink. Lovely. So nouns. So uncountable and countable nouns. So basically, obviously, a noun is a word that represents sort of an object in this case, particularly. So we might have apples being our example. Now that is an example of a countable noun because it's something that you can imagine counting a number of apples, whereas water, for example, you would say is an uncountable noun because you can't count how many individual, if you, well, I suppose you can say it's countable in the sense of glasses of water or portions of water, but water generally is an uncountable noun because you can't count one, water particle or whatever. It'd have to be, uncountable. So in positive sentences, we use some with plural and uncountable nouns. So I would like some apples, please, or I would like some water. Both of those work because some apples, so you can have plural apples for the countable noun, or always with an uncountable noun you would use some. So I would like some orange juice, please, or I would like some flowers, for example. In negative sentences and questions, sorry, just to clarify, these are like the rules, the grammatical rules, sort of, if you're structuring these sentences. If you're watching this as a video and you'd like me to do some more information about countable and uncountable nouns, then do leave a comment to say. As such, this is a very brief overview. I don't tend to do necessarily as much about the grammar stuff in this because I think it's more not necessarily suits these videos. But anyway, so countable and uncountable nouns. In negative sentences and questions, we use any with plural and uncountable nouns. So I would like some apples, please. Sorry, we don't have any apples. I would like some water, please. We don't have any water today, I'm afraid. We use a lot of with uncountable and plural nouns. I need a lot of apples to make a big pie. I need a lot of water because I'm very thirsty. We use a little with uncountable nouns. So I would like a little bit of water, please. I would like a little coffee, please, whatever. We use a few with countable nouns. So I would like a few apples, but you would never say I would like a few water. In questions, we use how many with countable nouns. So how many apples, because if you're asking how many, then you're asking generally for a specific number. So going back, so I would like some apples, please. I would like how many apples would you like? I would like a lot of apples. But yeah, how many is something that you use with countable nouns, and how much is something that you use with uncountable nouns. So how much water would you like versus how many apples would you like. In negative sentences and questions, we use much with, again, uncountable nouns. So how much water would you like? Now, going back to the words before, from the very start, I'll just flick back in a second, but I'm going to go through them and we're going to decide which fall in the category of countable and which fall in the category of uncountable. Okay, so I'll go back to the very start. And if you remember, so uncountable nouns are ones which you could imagine that you would never be able to count, and countable nouns are ones that you could count. So apple, that is, as we've been saying, a countable noun. Whereas chicken, I suppose as an animal you would say yes, that is countable, but as a meat you would probably say uncountable, because you couldn't break it up. You could say how many chickens are there as in the animal, but you couldn't say how many chicken are there in terms of the amount of meat. You'd say how much chicken would you like, because you can't count individual necessarily amounts of the chicken meat. Doesn't necessarily work that easily. Lettuce. I suppose that could probably be both, in the sense of how many lettuces. You would say whole lettuces, but how much lettuce would you like? You could say sort of the portions of lettuce. Because you could say probably break it down into lettuce leaves, I guess. How much lettuce? No. So yeah, getting confused myself. As you can see, it's quite tricky one to. It's just something you've got to sort of learn which ones are countable and which ones are uncountable. But as a general rule, if you can imagine counting out individual ones of it, then it is something that's countable. So pork is uncountable, beef again uncountable, but you could cows and pigs are countable, because you could have one cow, 2 cows, 3 cows, but you could never have one beef or one pork. Crab, so again, in the animal context of crab you would say it's countable, but in the meat context you would say uncountable, so I'd like some crab please. Milk, again, uncountable. Liquid, you can't count one amount of milk, but you could say 1 glass of milk please, or 1 pint of milk, and then it would become countable. So prawns / shrimp, I would like some prawns please, so that's countable. Butter, I would like, so yeah, that's uncountable. Cucumber, countable. Olive, countable, because again you can imagine 1 cucumber or 1 olive. Salmon, again, well, I think all the animals are going to be the same. Salmon, I would like some salmon please, but I'd like a few salmon, in terms of fish. So yeah, again, like I say, it's quite tricky. I'm just going to sort of skim through the last one. So garlic, cabbage, I'd like some garlic, a few cabbages. So cabbages is countable, garlic is, I think, bizarrely, some garlic, I'd like a few. I'd say that's uncountable. Onion, tomato, countable. Carrot, ham, carrot, countable. Orange, countable. Some cheese, some lamb, a few peaches, some yogurt. So again, you can, all the ones that kind of liquid, you can break it down. I'm sorry if I'm rushing. I thought I'd be able to explain this better, but I'm trying to sort of skim through it so I can get to this fun kind of quiz at the end. So I'll just leave it for now, but I'll maybe come back and touch on it in a bit more depth next week, because as ever I've not left myself enough time to do all the things that I would like to do. So this kind of touches on it again. I'll very, very briefly go over this and then just leave the last kind of few minutes dedicated to this bit of a quiz, and just get through as much as it as we have time for. So cross out the wrong answer to complete the sentence below. So I don't drink much / many milk. Now milk is an example of a liquid, which is something that is uncountable. Now if you can remember what we say for uncountable, I don't drink much milk. Okay, that would be the correct sentence there. I've had some / any apples for breakfast this morning. Now what do we think there? I had some apples for my breakfast this morning is the correct sentence. Number 3, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat. Would you say I don't eat beef, or I don't eat a beef? Now remember, that one is again uncountable. So what do we think that one might be? I would suggest that one is I don't eat beef, just straight. We don't need that out there. How many / how much oranges do you eat every day? Now, you can count oranges. You can say I eat 1 orange. So you would say how many. If you're asking how much orange juice do you drink every day, then that would be an example of uncountable, and therefore you'd say how much. but how many oranges do you eat every day? Because they're asking for kind of a pretty specific number or a general idea of that. Paul doesn't eat oranges. Now, if you remember again from the last question, they are of course countable. So you'd say how Paul doesn't eat many oranges. But again, like if we're saying orange juice, Paul doesn't drink much orange juice. Number 7, people say that a little / a few yogurts every day is good for you. I would probably suggest that you would say a little yogurt, because you can't say a few yogurts because it's basically a liquid, I suppose, so it's uncountable. Although I suppose you could say portions of yogurt, but then you pots of yogurt, but then it's getting into a whole other territory. So you would say I'd eat. People say that a little yogurt every day is good for you. I've got a / some cheese in my fridge. Now, do we think that is countable or uncountable? Now, that's more of a tricky one, I suppose. But I think again, it's cheese would fall into the uncountable category, and therefore you would say that I've got some cheese in my fridge. Pete puts a little. Really too hot today to think whatsoever. Completely losing the plot. Again, I apologise. So, Pete puts a lot of / much onions in his salad. Now, onions countable, so you'd say a lot of. I eat a lot of / much beef every day. You would say a lot of. Do you eat much / many carrots yesterday? Sorry, did you eat much / many carrots yesterday? You'd say many. Countable. Katerina only has and / apple. Katerina only had and / some apple for lunch. Now that one you've got to pay attention to. If you notice that apple there is singular. Okay, so Katerina only had some apple for lunch. That would make sense because there's only one apple, and some it would have to be either uncountable or plural. So Katerina had an apple for lunch. And finally, number 14, how many / how much butter do you eat every day? Butter is uncountable, and therefore how much butter do you eat every day is the correct answer. Now, right, whizzing through that. Sorry if it was only brief. I shall take this off, but I'm very keen. Got a bit of a fun little quiz at the end for you here about British eating habits. Just a little bit of fun, just for at the end. Now, yeah, this little quiz is concerned with, yeah, like I say, food in England, Britain, and it's about sort of general sort of stuff like that. And I'll go through each question, give you a second to think about it, and go through the answer, because obviously don't know how long it's going to take to whiz through these questions. We don't have that much time left. I don't want to keep you for the rest of your day if you're watching live, or for the video to go on for a million hours if you're watching it as a video. Now, where are we? So, question 1. Which of the following do the British eat most of in Europe? So, in all of Europe, out of the following foods, which do you think the British eat most of? Do we think it's crisps and chocolate, fresh fruit and vegetables, or sausages? Now, do we eat more sausages than all of Europe? So, maybe not. I know the Germans like a lot of sausages. Wurst, as they say over there. Fresh fruit and vegetables, well, that might be true, but I'm not sure necessarily that it... crisps and chocolate. It is, in fact, crisps and chocolate. We eat more than any other country in Europe of crisps and chocolate. Because, if you remember the food pyramid, that wasn't something that you want to be eating a lot of. That the crisps and chocolate are not fruit and vegetables, and therefore we should maybe be eating a little bit less of them. But they are, of course, delicious. What is the most popular food in all of Britain? Do we think it's fish and chips? Very tasty, of course. Pizza, again, yummy. Or curry? Give me a second to think about it. I mean, stereotypically, I suppose we are famous for our enjoying fish and chips. obviously a lot of people eat a lot of pizza, and curry is very popular. It is, in fact, curry is the most popular food in Britain, according to this quiz from the British Council. What is, question 3, haggis? Now, has anyone heard of haggis? That's an interesting one. I'd be even more intrigued if anyone's tried it. I have before I was vegetarian, which might give a bit of a clue. And it was surprisingly tasty based on what it is. Now, the options for what it is are a cocktail made from whiskey and fruit juice, a type of fish eaten in Scotland, or a Scottish dish made from sheep's stomach and innards. Ugh, it sounds horrible, doesn't it? If it's answer C, I think it might be a cocktail made from whiskey and fruit juice. Now, they do like their whiskey in Scotland, a type of fish. There's a lot of sea around the Scottish coast. I think it might be that. No, it is answer C. It is made from sheep's stomach, which is stuffed with various innards and other things, but it's actually surprisingly tasty. So if ever you try it, if ever anyone says, would you like to try some haggis, then you can either say, oh no, it's made from stomach, or you can say, oh, I'll give it a try. And I would always recommend trying things if if you give them the opportunity. Question 4, Stilton, cheddar and double Gloucester are all kinds of apple, A, B, pig, or C, cheese. That's quite a tricky one. If you don't know it, then I'd not necessarily be able to guess it, I don't think. Apple, pig, or cheese for Stilton, cheddar, and double Gloucester, they are in fact types of cheese, or very tasty types of cheese as well. Types of British cheese. What do most British people have for breakfast? A, toast and cereal. B, cappuccino and croissant, as they do on the continent, in France particularly. And or is it C, fried eggs and bacon, lovely fry up type situation, toast, bacon, might get sausages and all sorts. Now, the actual most common breakfast is toast and cereal, which, if you can remember from the food pyramid, will fall into the sort of grains category. Now, who invented the sandwich and why is the next question. Is it A, the Earl of Sandwich, and why? Because he wanted a food that you could eat with one hand while gambling. If you can imagine a sandwich and playing poker or whatever in the other hand. B, Lord Sandwich. He wanted food that you could take for a picnic in the countryside. Or C, Queen Elizabeth I. She wanted food which could be prepared quickly for guests. Now, again, it's probably not one you could guess. It was, in fact, the Earl of Sandwich who invented the sandwich, supposedly. He wanted food that you could eat with one hand while gambling. Well, there we have it. Question 7. What is a kebab? A type of pub. B, Turkish fast food. Or C, a hot drink. Hopefully everyone can get this. Something very tasty indeed. It is, of course, a Turkish fast food. Get the meat or whatever. Vegetables. There's a lovely place on Big Market that does a veggie wrap that just the thought of is making me feel so hungry. I'm missing Newcastle dreadfully. Can't remember what it's called. That's very embarrassing of me. Anyway, delicious veggie wrap made with chips and loveliness and salad. It is a Turkish fast food that's like wrapped in a sort of pita bread. 8. Which of the following ingredients would not be a possible ingredient of a British pudding? A, pig's blood. B, chocolate. Or C, lettuce. Which of the following could not be a possible ingredient of a British pudding? Well, obviously, chocolate you could get in different puddings. I can't imagine lettuce in a pudding. That's because it's not lettuce. And pig's blood is actually made into black pudding. So if you're ever eating black pudding in a cooked breakfast, then that's what it's made out of. Pig's blood, congealed, but again, tasty. Anyway, nonetheless, if you don't maybe think about what it is while you're eating it. But there we are. Question 9. Which of these do you find in a pub in Britain? Is it A, lager, B, cider, or C, bitter? Now that one is actually a trick question, and you can find all of them because they're all different types of alcoholic drink. Lager is like a fizzy beer, quite light. Bitter is a non-fizzy, sort of darker beer, a bit more heavy, and cider is made of apples. And I did have a few more questions. I'll leave it on this one actually. I'll leave it on this one. Where do people eat deep fried chocolate bars? Can you imagine that? Battered and then deep fried. Is it in Scotland, Japan, or Wales? No, it is actually Scotland. And I shall leave you on that little piece of trivia. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed the quiz at the end in particular. I certainly thought there was a couple of interesting questions in there. So thank you very much for watching. As ever, tune in again next week, and I shall think of a lesson that I've maybe not done before, because certainly having a sense of flashbacks throughout this lesson. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Do leave a comment if you have enjoyed it. And yes, so thank you very much. And yeah, see you next week. Okay.